why is China actually able to compete with the West on quality, right? So the iPhones that are built in China, the drones, the cars, they're actually of pretty good quality. One thing I noticed when I travel outside of Europe, I tend to travel a lot in Southeast Asia. I'm in Vietnam right now. I tend to travel to Africa, for example. And one thing I notice is that there's a lot of smart people everywhere. There's a lot of ambitious people everywhere. Of course, there's always cultural issues. But one of the main things that I notice is that a lot of the people here, for example, have a problem keeping quality straight. A very simple example, and you're going to say, well, this is not the most important thing, but I think it's very illuminating, is on the breakfast tables, there's supposed to be one salt shaker, one pepper shaker. And every day I go to the restaurant here, and I'm here all the time. You can almost bet that there's not going to be salt on the table, even though there's supposed to be one salt shaker and one pepper shaker, right? And so you might ask yourself, well, how difficult can it be to do that? And actually, as it turns out, depending on what culture you come from, what your context is, it can be quite difficult. So why and how did China get to a level where they can actually compete with Japanese, with German companies on quality, where they are, just from their history, from their culture, very good and very focused on quality? And I recently learned a fact, and if you guys know more about this, I'd be really curious to hear about that in the comment, but it was actually Apple. Because when Apple went to China to produce their products there, they ran into all the quality problems that a lot of Western companies going to the rest of the world experience, in that the quality really isn't that great. And if the quality isn't great, it doesn't help that the wages are much lower, because you're going to have so much churn. You're going to have so many problems downstream, right? You might even build the product, it might even pass the quality control, and then it gets back to the United States or Europe, and then it fails, and then it causes problems. The costs are tremendous, and the lower wages don't make up for that. But so because Apple had that same experience, they actually decided to go all in and train the Chinese workers in their factories in Apple's quality systems. And they did it to such a great degree. We all know Apple quality, it is really high. There's no disputing that. They went to such a high level on this that they taught a generation of people how to create Apple quality. And of course, those people changed jobs after a while. They founded their own companies. And if you think of DJI drones, for example, right? They are pretty good quality. There's really nothing to complain about. Yes, we always make jokes. I always make jokes about Timo technology, right? If something isn't working right, I always say, oh, there's Timo technology. But you can't just say this for the whole country, because a lot of companies in China are able to produce high-tech products at a very high quality. And the basis of this apparently is Apple seeding the thought of quality, this idea of quality, this system of quality into China. And then the Chinese were so smart to copy that and to bring this to new companies and to apply it, which I found super interesting. Question is, how do we do that? Because I think a lot of companies in the West, in Europe, also have the problem with quality. Maybe that's something that we need to relearn from ourselves, or maybe pick up from the Chinese now.